My wife's 36 female best friend, 36 female, confessed to me, 37 make, that she and my brother, 39 male, were bedfellows up until a few weeks before we met. Am I right to be angry about this? My wife, Mary, and I have been married since 2011. We married in 2014 and had 2 children, 4 male, 1 female. Mary has a best friend named Izzy, and they informed me they've been friends since elementary school. She was my wife's maid of honor at our wedding, and she is our son's godmother. Anyway, Izzy's brother had a short relationship with one of Mary's colleagues, and according to my wife, Izzy's brother was a jerk because he couldn't handle the coworker being a strong, independent woman. Izzy never gave me her brother's side of the story, but their bond is at its lowest point right now. I'm not sure why they became so involved in this connection, and to be honest, I don't care. Izzy contacted me this morning, claiming she needed to tell me something concerning Mary's history. She said I'm such a nice man and don't deserve anything. I immediately contacted her and wanted to know what was going on. Izzy then revealed everything to me. My elder brother, James, allegedly banged my wife for years before we met. I had no clue they were even acquainted. Izzy informed me that James was my wife's one that got away, and that although she desired a relationship, James never desired one, preferring to bang Mary and move on. I inquired how long it lasted precisely, and she said it was between 2005 and 2010. Mary and I met in December 2010 at one of my cousin's Christmas parties. Izzy said Mary just began dating me because I resembled James and I was the consolidation prize. Mary apparently phoned James after I asked for her phone number and told him she was going to date me and begged him not to tell me about our tale. My brother consented since she felt guilty for dragging her along for so long, and he was also seeing someone else at the time. You know, it actually checks out. When I reflect back on prior family reunions, I recall my wife and James usually starting up a discussion and laughing together. I recall James being supportive of our relationship, even telling me, "Never let this one go." Izzy then apologized for telling me all of this after having 2 children, saying she hopes I can forgive her, and that she considers me a wonderful friend. I praised her for her candor and told her I thought of her as a friend, and we'd chat later. I can't tell anybody about it right now. My therapist is on vacation and my 2 other siblings and parents love Mary and would just advise me to suck it up. Almost every one of my buddies is also one of hers, but I'm angry on the inside. I would never even hold her hand if I knew she was my brother's ex, much alone date, Mary, and have 2 children with her. I'm at a loss on what to do. It's been over a decade. Did I waste the past decade of my life on a relationship based on incorrect assumptions? I don't believe she's having an affair with my brother since he's a pilot, lives 6 hours away, and loves his wife, a fake. My biological brother is also my half-brother. Her biological mother died at delivery, and we never had a strong connection. But I always admired him because he was powerful and intelligent, and he always protected me. Update. Do you remember me, guys? The man who discovered his wife and brother had before he began dating his wife. Let me tell you, it's been an interesting couple of days. First, I confronted my brother with the facts about his and my wife's background. My brother didn't tell me much after seeing how upset I was about the Zoom. He just told me he did me a huge favor because my ex before me was a loser and everyone in the family despised her. I had no idea, and if I hadn't started dating someone else, she would have wormed her way back into our family again. I asked him what the heck he was on about, but he didn't say anything more substantive. After we began dating, he denied ever being interested in my wife and advised me to speak to her instead. He hung up on the Zoom call before I could question anybody else. Soon later, my wife contacted me, saying she was on her way to speak to me. Apparently, James phoned her and informed her of what had occurred. She came shortly after, and she was in tears. I couldn't tell whether she was telling the truth or fake it. Instead of an apology, her first inquiry was, "Who told you?" I told her it wasn't important, and she responded, "If it's Izzy. Don't trust anything she said, she hates me now." I asked her why she dislikes you, and she explained what transpired between them. Izzy's brother allegedly attacked Mary's colleague in her sleep, and Mary persuaded the coworker to the authorities. Izzy's brother's ex used this report as leverage to acquire exclusive custody of their children, and now Izzy faces the prospect of never seeing her nibblings again until they reach the age of 18. Izzy and her siblings went to my wife's office a few days ago to confront the employee, but they were forced out by security. I should point out that I didn't know 90% of this narrative since my wife has been living with her sister since the middle of April and didn't inform me over the phone. When I questioned her why she hadn't informed me, she said she was afraid I'd side with Izzy because I love Izzy's family, which I do, and I'd be furious at her. I informed her that if the attack on a colleague is true, I would not. She began telling me her story when we sat down, and she prepared some coffee. When she found out I was James' brother after we first met, she phoned James to inquire about me. My wife informed me that it was James' idea to conceal their connection, since James said that if I learned about their relationship, I would not date her, which is true. When my wife had reservations about me after our 4th or 5th date, she contacted James and asked him, "How can I break up with your brother without crushing his heart?" And it was James who persuaded me to give it another attempt. She never informed me she had reservations about me at the start of our relationship. I asked her how James persuaded her, and she claimed James told her some ridiculous childhood memories about me and how she'll never meet a great person like me in this day and age. So after these admissions, I asked her if I was her second to James for her, and she simply settled, and she said she certainly began dating me because I resembled James, but she remained with me because of who I was. When I questioned her why she hadn't informed me any of this in the previous decade, she said it didn't matter and wouldn't matter if it wasn't for that WH*re Izzy. I was furious when she blatantly told me she'd rather conceal this, but as she began weeping, I attempted to calm myself down and happily succeeded. She seemed really fragile, and she kept repeating "I'm sorry," which made me feel more worse. After she had calmed down a little, I told her that none of what she had said had satisfied me and that I still felt like our relationship was constantly under the shadow of James, and she began weeping again, telling me to forgive her and that she loves our family and that she loves me. When I begged for some space, she went back to her sister's place. Kids were there. She continued claiming she loved me and will return later as she was leaving. She attempted to kiss me, but I couldn't. I felt awful since it was the first time in my life that I had refused her kiss. Anyway, over the following 2 days, every single one of her friends and relatives contacted me and criticized me. Her newly postpartum sister told me she knew I didn't deserve her sister and that she'll get the greatest divorce lawyer, and her new best friend, previously second best, contacted me and told me I'm a fool for believing Izzy and that she'll destroy me. She didn't listen when I told her I wasn't engaged with Izzy, and she said she wished I got HIV from her. Lol. Izzy, keep in mind, did not phone me once following her first admissions. James contacted me again to urge me not to be an idiot, but it just turned into a yelling match because I despised the jerk with the perfect life. My wife never contacted me. Instead, she texted me, stating she would return with the kids on Monday morning and we could continue our chat then. I told her I didn't like how I was being insulted by everyone she knew, and she said she needed to tell someone since she was weeping uncontrollably. I didn't add anything else, that's all. Now that I've heard my wife's version of the tale, I'm really worse off than I was when I first discovered what occurred through Izzy. I spent the last 2 days drinking and playing with my friends, who advised me to bang Izzy for retaliation, but I refuse, and I feel like a dead husk. I aspire to be a pilot like James, but I couldn't pass the physical. I despise my accounting job, and I live in a cramped apartment with a wife who would rather be with my wealthy brother in the first place. I also had the impression that my wife did not inform me of anything I did not already know. She simply sobbed and said, "I'm sorry. I deserve better. Final update. I'll just state that I filed for divorce. I made an effort to forgive them, my wife and my brother. I tried to convince myself that it all occurred before I was even aware of it. We went to marital therapy and I went to individual counseling, but to no effect. I just can't get over the deception and falsehoods that I was put to. The irony is that Mary had warned me that this day would come. She told me she didn't believe it would be via her formerly closest friend Izzy, but she knew she built her marriage on a lie and that she could just pretend she hadn't slept with her husband's brother for years before meeting him. I truly tried, folks. We have a 4-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old boy who spent a lot of time in the NICU when he was born. Are they going to blame me in 20 years? Because I couldn't get over this one problem and kids make it addicted to drugs or anything else as a result of a broken household. Anyway, wife returned to her parents' place, and her parents also phoned and begged my forgiveness. They were well aware of my brother's existence all along. I told them it wasn't their fault, but it was the fault of their daughters, and I wished them well. We don't have a custody agreement, but I take the kids whenever I can. I also requested my brother not to contact me for the next several years as I heal. He told me he would comply with my wish, but only if I added that I would die alone and that I would regret this day in my final breath or something. That's all for now, guys. By the way, I slept with Izzy 2 days ago. It's all fine because I discovered my ex had been sleeping with someone else. Anyway, the encounter with Izzy was terrible. I believe she even fabricated her. She wants to take me on a trip next month, but I think it's a bad idea.